Morning, everybody. Hope everybody enjoyed being out at AREC last time on Tuesday. Fun spot to be. I don't know if you got a chance to look around, but it's really a cool place. Starting with evals, we're going to do both evals today for the pruning class and the turf, not grass. And the evals were actually great on both. So there's really not much to say there. Thank you for doing them. And then Susan will do the quiz, the chapter reviews.
So hello, everybody. I hope y'all are having a good morning. I'm right now planning a reset by talking to you guys. Some of you can see I dumped a cup of coffee in my lap this morning. It has not been my best morning. So up. See, and I can't even talk into a microphone. Okay, so we've got 2 chapter reviews to go through today. The one for chapter 11 on lawns, very quick. That didn't seem to cause very much trouble for very many people. I just wanted to say, to mention the one question that we had a number of misses on, and that is question number 1. What is the best time to plant a new or renovated warm season turf grass lawn in Virginia? And the best answer on that one was May to June. Okay. And I think that's, we have a lot of nice calendars for these kinds of plantings. If you go to the Virginia Tech website, you can see a lot of good information on that. So that's the only one that caused a little bit of trouble, but otherwise everybody seemed to be pretty happy with the lawns chapter. Michelle. All right, now the chapter 14 on pruning. Oh, I'm sorry. Chapter 14, we had a couple of things that we probably should mention. The first one you all know about was question number 1, where we gave you 4 perfectly good answers. So just ignore that. I mean, that was so clear in the book. When we wrote the question, our intention was to make the second choice, improving the quantity of flowers or fruit, be the desired answer. But then we decided, while we were listening to Phil talk, we thought even that was going to confuse you. So we made this really quick decision in the middle of class, changed the question, and made it even worse. So anyway, so forget about that one. Number 3 was a stumper for a couple of you. This is, which of the following is best used to stimulate growth throughout a tree? We got a lot of people who chose heading cuts on that one. What is a heading cut going to do? It's going to reduce the height or the width of the tree. So if our goal is to stimulate growth throughout the tree, then our better choice is the thinning cut. And that's the one that Phil spent the most time, I think, looking at or talking about and showing most of you. So we're looking for thinning cut on that answer. Let's see, number 4, when pruning small branches, it's best to cut where? Immediately below a node, immediately above a node, a short distance above a node, or halfway between 2 nodes. I hope you could eliminate the top choice and the bottom choice right away. I think that the 2 choices in between, immediately above and a short distance above, it's a legitimate confusion. Okay. Yeah, it's a judgment. You do want to go a little bit above, but not too much above. And so I'm sure that's why we had some misses on that. And that's just semantics. So if you missed that one, don't feel bad about it. That was, again, bad wording on our part. I think, let's see, and then the last one I wanted to mention is number 10, where we had a couple of misses. This is, when is the best time to prune hybrid tea and grandiflora roses? Of course, we didn't say much about the roses in the lecture section of this. So this was something you would have had to pick up just from the book. And the best answer is when the forsythia blooms. Okay. So everybody happy? Everybody happier than I am about spilling my coffee? I wouldn't count on any of these in, specifically being on the final exam. Think of this again as your practice in getting a question, looking it up in the book at your leisure, and getting your best answer. So, don't beat yourself up if you lost some. Now, I do think, we don't always get 100% on these questions. And I wanted to say, if you're one of the people who's not doing them, you're not doing yourselves any favors by skipping them. So, it's good practice for later. So, anything else?
Thanks, Susan. All right, we have a commercial, and this is for the Butterfly House, Kathy Janikova.
Thank you. My name is Kathy Janikova, class of 2013. I'm happy to be here with you this morning to introduce you to the Butterfly House at the Norfolk Botanical Gardens. Enjoy the slideshow. Please do not take notes. I don't speak to the slides, okay? The Butterfly House at the Norfolk Botanical Garden opens Father's Day weekend, and it remains open until the end of September. During that time, it's open from 10 in the morning until 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. Shifts are broken up into 2-hour blocks. So there are 4 or 5 2-hour shifts every single day, 7 days a week from June until September. It is a gold mine of hours for anyone who is either wanting hours, struggling for hours, needing to wrap their hours up before the end of their classes. So for that reason, and for many other reasons, the Butterfly House is a great choice. It's a delightful, invigorating, wonderful place. You will meet hundreds, and I mean hundreds of people, just sometimes in your shift. It's entirely possible to do that in one shift. What you need to keep in mind, and what I want you to take away, is that in order to be a Butterfly House docent, you must first become a Norfolk Botanical Garden volunteer. And you do that through the garden. You either start on their web page and go to volunteer and sign up that way, or you contact Taylor Payton, whose number will be the last slide on this slide presentation. And you take the orientation to the Norfolk Botanical Garden, get your badge, get all settled before the intensive, long instruction on butterflies and their life cycles is presented to you by our Butterfly House expert, Lauren Tafoya. These classes, the 2-hour sessions that she does the instruction, will be posted later, like in April or May, when she decides what her time availability is. It will be posted on the volunteer webpage for the Butterfly House, but I will also, as it's being posted, I will send it out either through our general meetings or as an e-blast. Lauren is very good about having the classes in the morning, in the afternoon, on a weekend, on a weekday, in the evening. So if you're interested and you've gone through the orientation to become a Norfolk Botanical Garden volunteer, you have many opportunities in that space of time to also get that education. It is mandatory. Not only must you be a Norfolk Botanical Garden volunteer, anyone doing this for the first time, which most of you will be, you must take that orientation. If you have done it, but haven't done it in a long time, it's worth doing again. The butterfly house is lots of layered learning. You will hear things, forget them, hear them again, relearn them, and that's a whole summer process. The point of her class is to allow you to develop some confidence, that you can engage with people. Your job as a docent is to welcome visitors to the butterfly house, to introduce them to the different butterflies, help them recognize them, and educate them about the life cycle of all the butterflies. As a master gardener, you will also be answering questions for people who are interested in having butterfly gardens, putting in the host plants. You will be shoulder to shoulder, and whatever your shift is, with volunteers from all over Tidewater. Okay, there will be Butterfly Society people there. There will just be people who are fascinated by butterflies, love the house, want to be there all the time, educating the public. And some of them are young kids. So please take that away. Get your orientation and your volunteer status with the garden. All of your signing up for shifts, all of your leaving, all goes through their volunteer hub. Nothing gets done on the calendar, although you will record your hours in Impact once your shift is finished. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Our speaker today is Gaylynn Callahan. She's the current horticultural extension agent in the city of Hampton. She graduated with a BS degree in biology from Grand Valley State University in Michigan, and then an MS degree in horticulture from West Virginia University with a research emphasis on aquaponics. And she has been the extension agent over in Hampton for 7 years. So please welcome Gaylynn Callahan.
So thank you for welcoming me to Norfolk. I haven't been here in a while. All right. And so, yes, I've been the extension agent in Hampton for about 7 years. No, I am not an entomologist. I'm just a person who I'm okay with insects as long as they're not in my house or touching my vegetable garden. But otherwise, I enjoy talking about them, helping our residents get solutions for their problems, or maybe they don't need to spray. I like helping folks figure that out. And you, as master gardeners, might be tasked with that, because you never know. My master gardeners, they happen to be in the Arboretum. You expect, simple conversation, and boom, they hit you with it. Oh, how do I get rid of carpenter ants or carpenter bees? And then you just have to think on your feet. Or sometimes the classic answer, I don't know, but I will get back to you on that question. Just give me your information. So just to begin, I will apologize. I am currently dealing with a sinus infection. So if I'm not enunciating words properly, or you need me to clarify something, please let me know. My phone calls have been interesting, just trying to communicate with folks. So if you're not hearing me properly, please let me know. Okay, so the basics of entomology. So we'll go over the good and the bad, because a lot of people come in with the bad aspects of insects. We're currently shifting towards more the good aspects of them. People love pollinators. They're in your face. My master gardeners, when I first came on, heaven forbid, I talk about spraying. The good is starting to show up, but at the same time, we still have issues with them. We'll go through classification, morphology, development, identification, insect injury, and then we'll just I'll end on a good note with insects, because I'm going to give you the good and the bad and the ugly. So I grew up in a household where, it's still today, my mom does not tolerate insects, whether they are inside or outside. If we saw one ant in that house, we were going to the movies. She was getting those raid bombs, and we were bombing the entire house. And that was before they made it, safe to, be on the surfaces. So of course, it's me and my brother, we had to do the cleaning after the bombing happened in the house. But since I've grown up, I've come to appreciate insects as a whole, even if they are pests. I've come to appreciate that they have a place, not in my house, but they have a place in the world, okay? So they are definitely an essential component of the ecosystem, all right? So we would not have a lot of our, animals that we just love and enjoy if it wasn't for the fact that we had some insects rolling around. Okay, if they weren't feeding the frogs, the fish, I love fishing. If they weren't feeding the fish, Lord knows what the fishing community would look like, and then so forth. We're talking about the food train, elevating upwards. Provide food. They decompose organic matter. So I depend on insects. You depend on insects. I go hiking a lot. I see the decomposing happening out in the woods. I see the decomposing happening in my compost bin. We see it happening everywhere. And it returns nutrients back into the world. They feed on harmful insects, so our beneficial insects. Like I said, when I first started, I had no problem spraying, but now I give time for my ecosystem in my backyard to work. Am I waiting on the parasitic wasp to show up? Yes, I am. Am I also waiting for some of the other animals that aren't insects on my vertebrates? Am I waiting for them to show up? Yes, before I start saying I'm pulling out whatever chemical to spray on my vegetable garden. They're important pollinators. Bees, honeybees are in our face a lot. But don't forget, we have solitary bees, our native bees. They're good pollinators. And you'd be surprised just how much pollinating mosquitoes do. Okay, yeah, everybody's face just turned up. But see, they are here. I know a lot of us, myself included, which wish they weren't, because they are the deadliest animal when you think about it around the world, just with the diseases that they transmit. But they are pollinators. They also produce useful products. I eat honey every day. Some good that it's doing me. I have a nasal infection, but I take honey every day to help with my respiratory system. They provide aesthetic beauty. I've started photographing just last year, so I don't have a whole lot, but I started photographing a lot of our insects. Even though they are very invasive, something like the spotted lanternfly, if you have ever seen it, and if you have it, you can pull it up on your phone. It's a very cool looking insect, but it's absolutely devastating our agricultural system. We thought, yes, its host plant is tree of heaven. That's an invasive plant. We really thought it was going to go to work on that, and it's doing everything but eating the tree of heaven. It's attacking grapes. It's attacking trees, fruit trees, all the things that we have on our store shelves. It's getting attacked. So we're on the lookout for it down here in Hampton Roads. It's not here yet, but you have to be mindful. You might have to, or you might come in contact with that situation. You never know. You think being a master gardener, you're just out, frolicking in the garden, and then, like I said, boom. Gaylynn, this is from a nursery in Newport News. We had a dead spotted lanternfly come in on our shipment, and we needed checked out, and then activated the state level with Eric Day, who's the state entomologist. Okay, I need to send this off to VDAX, which is our Virginia Department of Ag and Consumer Services. Okay, now we're bringing in more scientists in on it. Oh yeah, we need to elevate this up to the USDA. Oh my God. I never thought I would be in contact with the USDA like that. So you just never know. Your day could just be, like I said, frolicking in the garden, and the next thing you know, you're talking to the USDA. And they're important subjects for scientific research. Every so often you'll hear in the news, we're always discovering new insects, new animals, new plants, and that will continue. We just don't know everything that there is about life. And so you always just keep your eye out for the science like that. As for the bad, and I need some water, hang on. Less than 3% are considered pests. Okay, you may not think about it like that, but yeah, it's only 3% out of the billions of insects that are out there. Insects feed on, they injure, transmit diseases to people, animals, and plants. So like I said, mosquito, considered a pest. It's deadly, very deadly, the most dangerous animal in the world. Everybody's thinking it's a lion or a hippo. No, it's this thing flying around. And we still hear about some of the diseases around here if you are watching the news. West Nile virus is still out there. Zika virus is still out there. Malaria is definitely still out there. And they destroy billions, high billions in our agricultural crops. So food, fiber, our structures, termites, forest crops, or forests in our agricultural crops. Absolutely devastating. One thing I do that is of interest of me, I keep up with the news as far as invasive pests that are in this country. Also, on the flip side, I'd like to see what species in our country that are invasive to other countries as well. It's quite interesting, but cause billions in damage. So like, the spider lanternfly, we know it's on its way at some point. It's not here now, but maybe within the next 5-10 years or so, it's going to be here. We don't know what kind of damage is going to wreak havoc here in Hampton Roads. But what it will start off as is a quarantine. We'll try to quarantine as much as possible. Same thing with the red ants. It was quarantined at one point down here in Hampton Roads, but it became so prevalent and out of control. It's just a normal part of life down here now. So we don't report it to the state. It no longer gets elevated up to the USDA. And then overall, it's just a nuisance. Summer is coming. We're all going to want to chill in our backyards. And so is the mosquito. It's going to want to chill right there with you. Flies. I'm constantly those big old horse flies, they land on you, they hurt, they try to sponge off of your skin, and just a nuisance. So taxonomy. Anybody familiar with Carl Linnaeus and the system of classification for all species in this world? Oh, yes, I saw some head shakes. You got the Master Gardeners back there trying to hype y'all up. Okay. But there are 3 domains. Okay, there are 6 kingdoms. And every species, even us as human beings, we are classified. And Wikipedia is a good resource that I'd love to use. If I just want to know, genus and species is what really matters in this, and we were talking about this, because I like to understand and families, what families some of these, particularly in plants, where some of these families are, how they're connected. So you have your relatives, I have my relatives, we share the same diseases, we share the same, genes. Same thing works with all the other species out there. So, if one pesticide works for one insect, it might work for the rest in the family, okay? So this is the just a graphic that I pulled off the internet. So this is how the taxonomy for a stag beetle would be. And also apologizing, I'm not the best with my Latin, so I'll just let you read that. Okay, I know a lot of them, but some of them, I just don't know. But there's your stag beetle right there. I always like to put this in. So we're going to talk about the phylum Arthropoda, which also includes not only insects, but arachnids. So I will go into both today. But there's also an area for millipedes, centipedes, and sobugs as well. And I always put in this plug for Coyote Peterson. Anybody familiar with him? Oh my goodness. So let me tell you about Coyote Peterson. If you go on YouTube and look up At Brave Wilderness, how this guy makes money is essentially he goes around the world to find the most dangerous animal bite that is out there. Well, not dog or anything like that, but he'll even do a lobster. I think the worst sting that he has ever had is from a hornet in Asia. Okay. Why does he do this? I don't know, but it's interesting. And I kind of say, I don't want to mess with that insect. I don't want to get stung anyway. I've been stung plenty of times. I don't know why my cousin and we would catch bumblebees as kids. And they're very docile as long as you don't mess with them. But once you mess with them, look out. So I don't want to get stung ever again. So I try to be a little more friendly to our insect friends. So arthropods. And you eat arthropods as well in the form of crustaceans. So insects, arachnids, crustaceans, they're all related and they're all tied to this phylum here. So they all have jointed legs. Okay, you crack a crab leg, it's a jointed leg. Their bodies are made of grouped or fused segments. They have legs, antennae, and other appendages that are attached in pairs. And then they have a chitin exoskeleton. That's that crunch that you hear when you step on an insect or when you get into that blue crab. That's that crunch. That's the chitin that you're hearing. So insects, this is what differentiates insects from everybody else. They have a single pair of antennae. They have 3 body sections. So they have a head, they have a thorax, and then the abdomen. All right. That thorax, and kids will usually draw it, or people usually draw it on their abdomen, but on the thorax is where their wings are connected. Okay, so they can either have 1 or 2 pairs of wings. The abdomen contains most of the digestive system and reproductive organs. And in some cases, some animals have some sort of protection, like a bee. That stinger is going to be on the abdomen. Okay, sometimes the protection is on the head with mandibles, or a stinger, or not a stinger, but a proboscis. All right. Speaking of insect mouth parts, there when you go to identifying, there are 4 basic types of insect mouth parts, and you have the chewing, which is the grasshopper there. They're going to defoliate. Okay, and some, like I said, some insects, they can use that for protection. Piercing sucking in the form of the mosquito. So that proboscis, all it does is it is there to stick it like a needle into your skin, draw blood. Siphoning, which is the butterfly head here in the 3rd position, it's there to just, it's like a little tongue. It rolls out, laps up the nectar, and that's all an adult butterfly does, okay? And then the sponging of a housefly, what they do is they'll stick out that proboscis, secrete some enzymes to break down skin, whether it's yours or a horse or a cow or whatever, and so that they can lap up those juices, they can suck it up, okay? Yeah, it's pretty disgusting considering that they land on fecal matter, and then here they come to you, or they land on the food. As soon as I see something land on food, I'm done with it, just because I know where flies like to go. And the antennae, and sometimes you really have to get under a microscope. I don't know if there's a microscope in your office. If you're at the help desk, there is. Yeah, you have to really get in there because sometimes people do bring in insects and it's just like a scene out of Gone with the Wind. There's just things everywhere. And there's an antennae somewhere in the bag. And yeah, you have to find it. The abdomen might be elsewhere in the bag, and you're really trying to figure it out. And so the antenna structure might possibly help you because it is also segmented. They vary greatly. Each insect species is going to be unique. And they are the primary organs of smell, but they can also serve as organs for taste, touch, and hearing as well. I don't know if you've ever seen like what's his name on BBC? I forget his name, but the nature show guy, he'll do a close up on an ant and their antennae is just, they're just like searching. It's like radar to them. Okay. So these are very good identifiers of an insect, because I've had some doozies and I've had to ask folks to come back with a whole sample to help me out in some cases, because it's very possible. The life of an extension agent and a master gardener is not boring. Okay. Legs, it's the same thing. Legs are different amongst animals. So you have which is a running kind of insect, usually tied to a beetle. Jumping for a grasshopper is B. Digging is for a mole cricket. I've never seen one, but if you look at a picture, they look pretty cool. And so that's used for digging. Grasping and catching prey, D and E, the praying mantis. Walking and digging, F. G is also walking and digging. And then H is grasping females for mating. I was unable to find which insect that was tied to, but the infographic, that was the information that they provided. Because, like I told Chesapeake Master Gardeners, when I gave this presentation, insects are here for a good time and not a long time. So, yes. So the more appropriate colors, so for B, that matches up with our human leg to kind of gain some perspective on how it relates to the insect leg. They just don't have bones. That exoskeleton is what keeps them upright. And the beauty of that is, we hope we never get into a situation of like Starship Troopers where those huge bugs were attacking Earth. Just because that exoskeleton can only get so big, insects can only get so big. They should not ever, and if they are, I hope I'm not on this earth, that they are as big as us. But that's how you can relate to that. Wings are another thing that you could use to help identify. And you really, an entomologist would definitely know all of this. I don't expect you to know it. I'm sure Megan doesn't expect you to know it. It was your extension agent. Don't expect you to know every little detail, but these are, helpful identifiers. If you just can't identify it, or if you're on an app, Google Lens, Seek iNaturalist, and it's just not getting it right, you could try to plug in and see what kind of wing the insect has in order to get to the right one. So the Ephemerotoptera, and I'm just going to go from left to right on your side, are the mayflies. The Odonata are dragonflies. The Plectoptera are the stoneflies. The Strepsiptera are stylopids. Hemiptera are aphids, which are a bane of my existence. I hate aphids. They winter garden, and they're probably on my lettuce. I haven't checked them in a couple of days, but they're probably there. Lepidoptera are the butterflies. The Diptera are the flies. The Hymenoptera can be gall wasp or social wasp, when you're looking up there. I thought I heard him when and that's fine. I say too. Spiders are no friend to me except for in the garden. I was traumatized. I watched Arachnophobia with my mom when I was about 8. And to this day, I have trouble watching that movie. If you've never seen it, go watch it. It's not traumatizing at all. But the concept of that movie, Arachnophobia, the house that the family was living in was just infested with these killer spiders. And it's a horror movie. And here I am innocently watching it at the tender age of 8 with my mom. She's loving it. And I'm like, I'll never touch another spider again. But arachnids, in comparison to insects, they have 8 legs all right, and 2 body parts. So, or body segments, I should say. So insects have how many legs? 6. And how many body segments? 3. Okay, and the arachnids have how many legs? And how many body segments? 2. Okay, so with the arachnids, they're going to have a thorax and an abdomen, or cephalothorax in this case. The mouth parts, the pedipalps and the chelicerae, are on the cephalothorax. The pedipalps are the leg-like structures used to feel. I don't know if you've ever seen like a tarantula lift those little tiny legs in the air. That's when they're that is the pedipalps. And the chelicerae are their fangs in the case of spiders. Okay, if it's something like a tick or a mite, those are saw-like structures so that they can saw through skin to get access to your blood. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting stuff. Make a conversation. Okay, and this just sums it up. 3 body parts for insects compared to arachnids. Insects are going to have wings. Heaven forbid mites and spiders start flying, because I don't know where, there's no leaving Earth. I don't know where to go after that. And they also have antennae, insects, in comparison to arachnids. So, based on this picture, A is fleas, or A is fleas, B is a louse, C is a bird mite, D is a chigger, E is scabby mites, or scabies, sorry. Which one, or which ones, based on the pictures are up there, are the insects? Okay, we have a vote for E. They're little hairs. Little hairs. Okay, so I've heard none. I've heard E is the insect. Okay, so the correct answer, the fleas are insects. So it has 3 legs. You can't see it, but it's going to have 3 body parts. The lice, also have, did I say 3 legs? 3 pairs of legs. Is also an insect. And your mites, both C and E, are going to be your arachnids. It's kind of hard to tell with the scabies that they have 8 legs, but they do. Scabies is, they are an insect that you really need a microscope to look at them, like an electron microscope, in order to see. That's why whenever you see something like mange or scabies on like vet shows, they have to scratch it off, put it under a plate, and put that under a microscope in order to see what's going on, because they're very hard to see. And then chiggers, they have 6 legs. It's an insect. Okay. So metamorphosis is always fun. You always want to know where in the life cycle an insect is at. So has anybody ever seen a ladybug larva? Yeah? No? Okay. So, and you can get on your phone, you can look at, I don't have a sample, because the last thing I ever do is harm a beneficial insect. But a lot of people, I'm in a lot of plant groups on Facebook, social media. A lot of people just see this insect and it looks very predatory. And it is. It really does put in some work against aphids. But it looks like the most menacing thing ever, ladybug larvae, and it's very different from the adult. So people see that innocent larvae and they just are ready to spray without identifying. Well, it's in a process of a life cycle. It's in the baby stage. And actually, the larvae probably puts in if not the same, more work in eating aphids than the adults, because it's trying to get to the adult stage and it's trying to get that nutrition. So there are different phases of metamorphosis. You have no metamorphosis, you have gradual and complete. So understanding that life cycle is very important. Also, when I make chemical recommendations, no one's ever going to harm a butterfly or even a moth. They're very beautiful. They're good at pollinating. But it's caterpillar? Oh, spray it. If it's destroying a tree, if a caterpillar cabbage worm is destroying my cole crops and I can't get control of it, it's going to get sprayed. Okay. But I would never harm a butterfly. It's babies, absolutely. So no metamorphosis. These are more of your primitive insects. Classic example is a silverfish. The nymph is going to look the same as the adult. It just grows in size. Okay. Gradual metamorphosis. The young and the young nymph is going to look similar to the adult, but the nymph is going to have a larger head relative to their body, and they're not going to have wings. So when the grasshopper flies at me in my garden, I know that is a full-size adult, okay? They're going to live in the same environment and eat the same food. However, there are some insects, such as dragonflies, that go through gradual metamorphosis, and that nymph stage happens in the water, okay? The adult hangs out around the water, but it is also a terrestrial insect as well. It flies around. That nymph is going to complete its life cycle in the water. And then you have complete metamorphosis. Okay, so a classic example here is the mosquito. The baby is going to look very different than the adult. Okay, so you're going to get that larval and then that pupa stage. Same thing with the butterfly. So it'll go from egg to larvae. In the case of mosquitoes, if you've ever seen the water just like moving, because there's like billions of larvae in there, that's them. They will harden up, turn into a pupa, and then they'll emerge as a terrestrial adult. So insects of importance to homeowners and gardeners, because we just don't, a lot of people don't garden, but a lot of people have questions about what's going on in their house. So Orthoptera are your grasshoppers, your crickets and katydids, which I didn't know was a chocolate until recently. They were very good. But the adults are moderate to large. They have two pair of wings. The first pair is hardened. The second pair behind them is more membranous. Those nymphs are going to resemble adults, but again, because of the metamorphosis lifestyle, like I was just referring to, they don't have any wings. They're going to have chewing mouth parts, so they're going to come after your plants. Okay, you don't want something like a locust coming through acreage of farmland. It's going to be terrible. And they sing. Okay, we're going to have, I believe, 3 generations of cicadas out here soon. I think we're going to get the annual, which comes every year, and I think the 13 and the 17-year cicada will be here with us this summer. So it's going to be very, very loud this summer. So they go through gradual metamorphosis. Wadadea are your cockroaches and termites. Nobody wants these issues. Even though, there are some cockroaches, they're out in the woods. You don't want them in your house, essentially. They're going to have chewing mouth parts. They chew on food, decaying matter, whatever it is out there. Wood, in the case of termites, they have gut bacteria that can process that cellulose. They'll go through gradual metamorphosis. And what I look for, and I'll show you some more pictures, I look for those tailpipes that are on the end of their abdomen. It looks like two tailpipes coming out of their rear end. And that's how I know I'm dealing with a cockroach, because some people get cockroaches and bed bugs confused. And I always look for those two tailpipes coming out. Cockroaches are going to have an oval, flattened body. They're going to be dark to brown. Their life cycle, as far as the American cockroach, I'm sorry, the German cockroach, can be very quick. The termite can be very quick as well, like 100 days or so, their entire life cycle. American cockroach, maybe 400 or 600 days, something like that. Okay, so you're not going to see American cockroaches in mass like you do a German cockroach. Termites are going to resemble ants, but they don't have that waistline, that Coke bottle shape that I call it, that ants have. They're soft-bodied and they live in a colony. They have a social system. The queen is always fun to find if you ever see one. I got my old school pointer here. So the queen here, they have the social system. It's similar to honeybees, where she's in charge and she's just giving birth to just babies, days upon days upon days. Yeah, it sounds awful, doesn't it? The American cockroach, because I don't see too many termite issues in Hampton. I'm not sure how it is in Norfolk, but I do see a lot of folks, they bring in cockroaches, and they want to know which one. And it's usually a pesticide applicator, one of our commercial pesticide applicators. German cockroaches are the most common in the US just because their life cycle is just so short. So with the American cockroach, that center portion of their the shield on their head is going to be light brown and the outer edges are going to be yellow. And it's about 1.5 inches long as far as its entire body. It's reddish brown body. The German cockroach has 2 brown stripes going down its abdomen. And it's going to be anywhere between 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch long. All right, so American cockroaches, they prefer cool, damp, dark locations. So they're going to be in basements, gutters, sewers. They're just going to be hanging out. It's usually like a singular one. They're not going to scatter like if you just like lift up a plate of food and like German cockroaches just scatter. They're not going to do it like that. Sometimes you might get an egg or a nymph, and it's very hard to see, but they're 2 little tailpipes. That's what I don't know the technical name. I know there's a technical name for it, but I've always called tailpipes because they remind me, you know, I'm from Michigan, Detroit, and I enjoy my muscle cars. So they look like those tailpipes that just come right out of a 68 Mustang. I love it. So that's how I can identify, you know, the cockroach, because the treatment is going to be the same across all of them. But the nymphs are dark. The eggs are going to be dark as well. And the coloration is going to be patterned. It's not going to be uniform, as is the case of like, you know, it's going to look like some of these art paintings where it's just a mash of, oh, what's the word I'm trying to think? I'm sorry? Not abstract art, but no, just, I think that's the word, but the colors are just going to be, it's going to look like it's swirled around, I should say. Whereas the German cockroach, that pattern with especially with those 2 lines coming, the racing stripes, there I go again with American muscle, coming off of its head there, it's going to be very noticeable. These are the 2 common insects that at least come into as far as cockroaches, come into the Hampton office. So the German cockroach is going to rely on human activity. So I see this more often. And like I said, usually from our commercial applicators who go around to buildings and whatnot, and they spray. So they're found in baseboards, bathrooms, kitchens. There are a lot of cleaning people on social media now, and you can definitely see houses with just millions of German cockroaches in the house. So their nymphs are going to be a little lighter in color compared to the American cockroach. I'm sorry, the egg case. The nymph itself is going to be black, and it's also, you'll start seeing that banding start forming around their back there, and then that ultimately turns into those racing stripes that go down their head there. And so that coloration pattern I was talking about, where it's more marbled, that's the word I was looking for, marbled with the American cockroach. This is just clean cut. It is light brown and it has those racing stripes down its head. So termites and ants, this is an infographic that provides a more up close view of the visual I was trying to say. So that ant is going to have that Coke bottle shape where it's just thin in the middle, in the waistline there, and termites don't. And you usually see the symptoms or signs of a termite infestation before you even see the termite. I've only had maybe like a couple cases, but those couple cases are devastating because in both cases, they had to replace the entire fence line. Thank goodness they were outside, not inside. But the entire fence line was just chewed to no end. So it's costly when you have to do that. Mantidiid, which are your praying mantises, mantids. I absolutely love praying mantis. Especially, you'll never see it here, but the orchid praying mantis is very beautiful. If you just pull it up online, it's a beautiful pink color. It blends in, with orchids in the tropical areas. So an unsuspecting insect, it might catch a small hummingbird as well. They're that powerful. And it's just so beautiful. And how they work. But the adults can be large to moderate. They have very large eyes so that they can see their prey. And those legs are modified for catching prey. And some of them are so strong that they can catch a hummingbird. And if you know just how quick hummingbirds can be, you can appreciate the skill level that it takes for a praying mantis to snatch something like that out of the air. The adults have two pair of wings. I need to make a correction to that. Not toe pair of wings, but two pair of wings. The adults and nymphs have chewing mouth parts and they eat other arthropods. They're also cannibals as far as the female is concerned, because she's going to chew the head off of the male after mating. We all know that. And then they go through gradual metamorphosis. I say that, but they're very beautiful. Walking sticks, you may or may not see them out and about. They camouflage very well. They look like twigs. They resemble brown or green twigs. They have long legs and antennae. Both nymphs and adults have chewing mouth parts and they feed on plant matter. They feed on leaves. They're very slow moving. They don't want to get caught by a predator. But I've never seen one, but they're very cool, at least on the nature shows whenever I do see them. So earwigs. There have always been tales and myths about the earwig. They go in your ear and they just eat your brains out or something like that. That is not true. The pinchers, the forceps back there, they're going to run away from you more than anything. They'll use that as a last method of defense. But they're harmless. I usually find them under my pots. I lift it up and they scatter off. They're moderate in size. They're elongated with flattened bodies. They have that strong forceps back there at the tip of their abdomen. They have 2 pair of wings. I've never seen one fly up at me, however. I don't want that. Oh my God, the forceps coming at you in the air, that's terrible. And then they have chewing mouth parts. They go through gradual metamorphosis. I'll just drop these off there. I forget what plants those are, but the white specks on there are scale, very prevalent here in Hampton Roads. If you're really out and about and looking, you will see them. And what they do is they suck the juices out of the plants essentially. And if you leave it on there for too long, it could kill a plant. Another thing about these is that they can transmit viruses as well. So they range in size. They're very large. They're very diverse. They have that piercing, sucking mouth part. So like I said, they just penetrate into a plant and they are just there to suck the juices out. And they can suck a plant dry if you don't do something about it, which is why I hate aphids being on my lettuce, because I want the lettuce. Back off, that's all I want. The nymphs in adults, they feed on plants. Some of them feed on blood as well. They go through gradual metamorphosis, but the nymphs of scale, mealybugs, and whiteflies can look different from the adults. But I will say the cool thing about aphids is their gender is based on temperature. So they start off as females. As it gets hot, a few of them start converting over to males so that they can mate and reproduce through their life cycle. So it's very interesting, but I still don't want them in my garden. The assassin bug here in the middle portion, if I see them congregate, they usually congregate in my tomato patch. And when I see them, I back up. They have a large proboscis. And when they stick you with it, I don't know if anybody has done like a diabetic needle or just a needle in general. Just imagine instead of that slow, 1, 2, 3, and you go, you have no warning. And the middle insect in there, the assassin bug, it feels like a sharp needle going through your hand. You have no warning. And they congregate by the dozens in my vegetable garden, and I just back up. They're beneficial, but I just back up because it's really painful. So these are bed bugs, which are also a part of this group, Hemiptera. So these are bed bugs. A lot of people confuse them with the cockroach. Again, I look for the tailpipe. These have no tailpipe. I've had encounters, an encounter with a bed bug at a hotel. And it was a while, I grew up, I never heard of, it was just don't let the bed bugs bite. That is the extent of my bed bug experience. And then I went to a hotel and these things were just crawling on me. They're not known to transmit diseases to humans that we know of, but I didn't want to bring them into the house, so I just threw everything away, got my money back from the hotel. The beauty about it, personally, if you ever have an issue, I sent off pictures to, what's her name? Oh, I know her, Dr. Dee Dee, but I forget her last name. She does a lot as far as home pests. So she does a lot of cockroach research, but she does bed bug research on us as well, but not as much as cockroaches. But, I emailed her because, the hotel was arguing with me about it. And I was like 100% sure these are bed bugs. And, once I had that support, they were like, okay, well, here's your money back for your stuff in your hotel, So those kind of things are little information. So now whenever I go into a hotel, I kind of just leave everything at the door or put it in the tub because they can't climb up porcelain or plastic. And I make sure I check the fibers of everything in the hotel because I don't want to get attacked again. It was very horrible. But I check everything in hotels now. They're blood-sucking parasite. I look bumpy for a couple of days after that. But like I said, they're not known to transmit diseases, thank goodness. The female will lay 1 to 5 eggs every day for 2 to 10 months. They'll lay it in bedding or cracks in protected areas in the host's sleeping quarters. They can also do it on couches or things like that. The eggs will hatch in 1 to 2 weeks. The nymphs are colorless, so that first instar over there. And they undergo 5 moltings, developing that reddish-brown exoskeleton after each molt. Each nymph stage needs a blood meal. So every time they need to molt, and those dark spots in this example up here is the blood. They'll also inject an anticoagulant to help keep the blood flowing. Okay, so they're just at a bar, nightclub, and they're just sucking on you. Keep it flowing, And the adults have a flattened oval body; they cannot fly. And both the adult and the nymphs, they can withstand long periods of starvation for up to a year. So, yeah, insects can be very fascinating. You don't want it, but the facts are very fascinating. Thrips. Did I not change those pictures? I didn't. But thrips, they're soft-bodied. They can wreak havoc in like greenhouses, very much so. The adults have 2 pair of legs with slender wings. I'm sorry, they have 2 pair of slender wings and they have fringed hairs. They resemble feathers. Don't let the beauty have you fooled. These are pests. Rasping, sucking mouth parts. So rasping is like if you ever seen a leaf and it looks like sandpaper has scratched it, that's what that looks like. They're plant feeders and they may transmit diseases, so viruses. Viral infection for a plant is very deadly. There's usually no coming back from a viral infection with the plant. So these are anything that transmits a disease is not something that you want. Because you imagine, lettuce is one thing, but aphids getting on some of my perennial plants that I really paid some money for, I'm going to be upset. So I try to protect those a little more often. And they have both gradual and complete metamorphosis depending on the species. Coleoptera are your beetles, weevils, borers, and white grubs. And now that I think about it, grubs are probably the issue that I get most. Someone was up here talking about lawns the other day, or just a few minutes ago. Grubs are a huge issue. You just don't know what's happening in your grass. A lot of people, I'm having mold activity because of the grubs. It's usually because of the earthworms, but grubs, and it's not necessarily Japanese beetle grubs when we're talking about white grubs. It could be the grub of any beetle. I remember I was cleaning out my containers, and they even get in the containers if you leave them on the ground long enough, and just dozens of them. I usually just leave them out on the driveway for the birds to pick up. But they have a hard exoskeleton. The adults have 2 pair of wings. They have chewing mouth parts, so they're going after your plant matter. The larvae have a head capsule, so that dark area up front here on their head, they have 3 pair of legs on the thorax, and no legs on that abdomen. But they're just kind of hanging out in your soil, waiting for the right temperature. Those grubs are going to pop up here soon in April. They're going to emerge as, adult beetles here soon. But I'm always shocked when I start digging in my soil, just how many grubs are in there. And another cool fact about them, because I did not know, has anyone ever heard of milky spore? Yes, okay. I did not know that was very specific to Japanese beetle white grubs. It doesn't work across the board for all grubs. And so I asked Eric Day, the entomologist at Virginia Tech, well, how do you know which grub do you have? And he told me there are hairs on the anus that helps them to identify which grub that you have. So this is not something you and I can do. We definitely have to send it off to the lab because yes, like cool. I don't want to get that deep into insects. Okay. So it's a very cool fact, but if you have grubs and you can't identify it, you know, just send it off to the lab because I'm not trying to focus the microscope that closely. Yes. Yes, that's another good way to get rid of them. Now, I can't speak to how effective they are, though, but I would imagine a fish might take it. I know when I was in West Virginia, a lot of people use the cicadas to go fishing. So I just don't know how effective it is, but maybe I'll try it because I am an angler. Diphtheria are your flies, mosquitoes, gnats, midges. The adults have one pair of wings. They have that sponging, piercing, sucking mouth part. Really disgusting when you think about it, that they're secreting those enzymes to break up your skin so that they can just suck it up. But that's what they do. The advanced fly larvae, they're called maggots. They lack a head capsule and they possess mouth hooks. Okay. The larvae of lower forms just possess a head capsule. Blood-feeding flies can transmit diseases. And the larvae or maggots of those blood-feeding flies have mouth hooks or chewy mouth parts. And they go through complete metamorphosis. I believe the horsefly is a blood-sucking fly. So I go into a little bit more depth of the mosquito whitefly because you might get a lot of questions about, you know, how do I control mosquitoes? So it's important to understand what cycle of the life cycle that the mosquito is in. And how am I doing on time? I feel like I've been up here for 8 hours. Oh, okay. So the female, and the female is the only one that takes a blood feeding. She will deposit oval eggs on the surface of non-flowing water. Okay, so this doesn't happen in rivers or oceans or anything like that. That egg will hatch in 1 to 4 days, depending on the weather. The warmer, the better. Interestingly enough, I've already had a mosquito land on me. What day was that? Was that before I got sick? The 22nd of February, I was outside in my garden. Okay. And mosquitoes in February it's just scary. But anyway, some species can lay their eggs in moist soil. So I have both issues. I have the ditch in my backyard. Sometimes it doesn't flow, and I have to go and clear the leaves just to make sure that the mosquitoes aren't laying eggs. And then there's also a wet spot downhill from my house where if I step in it, things are going to fly up at me. So I kind of avoid that area until I'm ready to plant in that area. It's very deep shade, and I just want the right plant in the right area. So I just avoid that area. But they will hatch within a few days if they're in moist soil after being flooded. So we've just had all this nice rainfall. I'm expecting something soon, okay? The larvae can stay inside that egg within a year if optimal conditions aren't met. That's horrifying, nightmare fuel. The larvae live in water and they're filter feeders. They can take 3 to 4 days, maybe several weeks to fully develop into a pupa. And the pupae do not feed, and they turn into adults within 2 or more days. So this can be a very short life cycle, like 10 days or so. Okay, and adults are, we all know they're terrestrial and they can fly. So the importance of knowing that mosquito life cycle, because there are different control methods for the larvae, larvicides, compared to the adults, which are just open air spraying. And you might get any beekeepers in here? Yeah, so you get notified when spraying is happening? Okay. Oh, okay. Well, beekeepers, they can, oh, what's the website? I have to think of the website, but usually cities have a um, website where beekeepers can check in, you put in your address, and they'll notify the beekeepers when spraying is going to occur so that you have enough time to protect your bees. Um, but if they're not spraying in the area, that's probably why you're not getting contacted. I'm not sure about Norfolk, but they do spray in Hampton. They yeah, we get notifications about spraying around Langley. They usually spray around Langley. But they do send out notification like a week, 10 days in advance if you're signed up for it. So you'd have to check out with the city of Norfolk if that happens, or check in with the Norfolk Beekeeper Guild, I think it's called, and see if they can direct you to the right resources for it here. Okay, so again, the most deadliest animal in the world. So encephalitis, you're gonna get brain inflammation, meningitis, malaria. I'm sure there are a lot of veterans in here, and that first day of boot camp, you just got loaded up with all kind of vaccines. And I'm sure one of them was for malaria, dengue, and yellow fever. I'm sure you got all those shots. West Nile virus. Oh my God, I remember when that was in our faces in the, I want to say 90s, maybe very early 2000s. Just scare. And then Zika virus, when I first came here to Hampton in 2016, that was the news of the day. And how do we protect pregnant women from a Zika virus? So just all of these things, and this is still a problem, especially malaria, still ongoing. Not so much here in this country, but the minute you step outside the U.S., these are all ongoing issues globally. The house mosquitoes, Culex pipens and Culex restaurants, they're found more in the north. So they're northern house mosquitoes. They're night feeders, so they'll be hanging out with you after the sun goes down. The unpleasant mosquitoes, I think they're all unpleasant. But the genus Aedes, and so you have Aedes albopictus and Aedes aegypti. They're going to have like that zebra-like pattern, the white, and in the case of albopictus, black. They have white with black markings, and Aegypti has white with brown markings. And they're going to be around during the daytime. The beauty about being in Virginia is we're going to have both. So the Aedes are going to be around in the day, and at night, I don't think it's going to stop. The Culex genus is going to be around. So you can't get away from either. So source reduction is really key, and you really be surprised. Like now is a good time to see where water has accumulated around your house. We've had a ton of rain. I think more rain is coming on Saturday. It is a good time to see where water accumulates, because the egg to adult phase can happen in about 7 to 10 days. Okay. Start tipping over things so that whatever eggs that are there, whatever larvae are in the water, you just tip it over. Bird fountains, my containers accumulate, and it's just the small bottle caps. It's the smallest thing, and there can be thousands of those larvae in that bottle cap. tarps, my wheelbarrow, even the little holes that are in my compost bin. I got to make sure I'm spinning that. So it's a constant game of going outside. And I have to do it this weekend, even sick, because I don't want mosquitoes in my yard because it's starting to warm up. Now's the time for them. They're going to be out to start dumping things. So get out in your house, around your house, and see where water's accumulating. Your downspouts, old tires, pools, pots, trays, jars, cups, maybe anywhere. You know, your gutters, you know, that's a little hard to get to, you know, every 7 days you crack out the ladder or something. I understand. But if you can get to it, just dump it. I refill the bird feeder every week, even when it's cold outside, because I never know. We've had days when it's been in the 30s and then the next day is 70. I just don't know what's going to happen. Question? Yes, that's enough. As long as the water is moving, the mosquito will not lay eggs there. So not flowing water, if it's still, game over. Game over, man, game over. But yes, as long as that happens, you're good. But in my case, I have to keep dumping. It's a labor of love. No, I hate it. I hate it. But I make sure it happens because I don't want to be bombarded. I like to enjoy my backyard. Hymenoptera, you may not think it, but this is the order that everybody loves, honeybees. I don't know anybody who just outright hates honeybees. But the larvae have no legs, except for sawflies. They have 3 pair of legs on their thorax, and at least 6 legs on the abdomen. They're soft to hard bodies. They have many species have stingers, as we all know. And the adults have chewing mouth parts. Lepidoptera, another favorite for everybody, are your butterflies, moths. Not so favorite, caterpillars and cutworms. Cutworms are the reason why I don't grow corn, because they will never let me grow corn. The adults are soft body. They're very beautiful. The patterns are very beautiful. They have 2 pair of very well-developed wings covered in scales. The adults' mouth parts are coiled or siphoning. So the adult butterfly, all it does, it just laps up, or a moth, it just laps up nectar. That's all it does. Its babies, like I said, those are the dangerous ones to your plants. There's just no reason to kill butterflies. They're not there to harm your plants. They only have one job, is to eat and reproduce. And that's all they do. The larvae, the caterpillars, they have the chewing mouth parts, and they're going to have 3 pair of legs on that thorax and multiple pair of legs on the abdomen. And that's the cabbage worm, the cabbage lopper that I was talking about earlier. I love growing cabbage family of vegetables. These things can absolutely wreak havoc. Sometimes I don't see them because they blend in quite well with the scenery. And they can get really meaty and really juicy. So commonly encountered non-arthropods. So like I said, I'll talk about some arachnids here. So spiders, mites, ticks, and daddy long legs. They're soft body. They have the 2 body regions. They have the 4 legs, or 4 pair of legs, sorry. They are very much predators. They're plant feeders, and they can also be parasites. So you get 3 for 1. And we know if they're a parasite, they can transmit diseases. So again, with something like ticks, that chelicerae, saw-like structures instead of fangs when we're talking about spiders. They're there to saw into your skin in order to get access to your blood. So right here, that's their chelicerae. Has anyone ever had a tick bite? Oh, wow, just about half the room. I hike. One of my favorite stories to tell, I was hiking up in Pennsylvania, and I came out of the woods and I went grocery shopping, and I just felt something crawling on my neck. And I pulled up 3 black-legged ticks, and I went screaming out of Kroger. And as people were just looking at me, thank goodness I was in the produce section where it was close to the door. But I know about Lyme disease and everything, and those are the diseases that I just did not want. The black-legged tick is the one that transmits Lyme disease, but I've also been bitten by a Lone Star tick. Thank goodness I did not get alpha gall, which is the red meat disease. You can't eat red. Not saying you can't, but you're going to be very sick. You're going to be hospitalized for a couple of days because you're not going to feel very well if you eat red meat. The Lone Star tick transmits alpha gall. The black-legged tick transmits Lyme disease. And I'll get to the American dog tick, though it seems like that one is more out west. But black-legged tick is more up north. You'll predominantly see Lone Star tick down here in Hampton Roads. And you'll read that it's in tall grass, but I have gone through cut grass down at Fort Monroe and had Lone Star tick on me. Also, just hiking through some mulch where was I at? West Neck Park in Virginia Beach, down there by the Municipal Center. I came up with a Lone Star tick on me as well. That's the one that bit me. Thank goodness it did not transmit alpha gall. So the black-legged or the tear dick, the black legs are the identifier. That Lyme disease and an alpha gall, it'll cause like a bullseye shape on your where the bite mark is. And I'm sorry, let me backtrack. There were some facts here. There are only 17 tick species found in Virginia. 3 commonly bite people. And the diseases or the disease symptoms are similar to mosquitoes, which are flu-like symptoms. Okay, back to black-legged tick. So their main vectors, and this is across the board, is going to be in that nymph stage, summer, spring and summer. Not saying that it is the only life stage that they will transmit, but they will more than likely do it in the nymph stage. Adult ticks bite people much less often, but again, that does not mean that they won't bite or that they won't transmit diseases. And they predominantly live in the leaf litter on the forest. And that's why I just stay on the trail. I stay on the sidewalk. I don't cut through grass nearly as much ever since I came up with the Lone Star tick on me, cut or otherwise. Definitely if it's high, the grass, I don't walk through it. Even in our arboretum, there are some sections on the back side of our arboretum. If I cut through there, I always check myself. And people look at me oddly when I go to work in the arboretum because I will tuck my socks in over my pant leg and I will walk around the arboretum everywhere like that. And the patrons just look at me like I'm weird. But I just tell them the back side, there are ticks there. You want to avoid that area. The Lone Star tick, the female and the male, the female is on the left side there on that big picture. It's going to have that yellow dot in the back of her abdomen, while the male is going to have what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to have some etching on the outer side of its abdomen. The yellow markings that are in the middle picture there. They're very aggressive. I call it the Terminator because she will just track you down for that blood meal. They are known to pursue for long distances. They can also transmit Aerokysophis, or ehrlichiosis, and telomeria. And those cause flu-like symptoms in addition to the alpha gall. And it's also, I think I read that it's not just red meat. We're also finding that white meat, pork product, you could become allergic to it as well. So it's just very devastating. Imagine you have to give up a steak, or you have to be ready to go to the hospital if you want a steak. It's just not something I want to do. So the American dog tick, I believe it's found more out in the West. I haven't heard of any reports of it here. But you can get Rocky Mountain spotted fever. The female and the male are going to have both that white markings on the back of its abdomen there. And American dog ticks can occur in old fields, tall vegetation, and on the forest floor. Again, spring to summer. So we're getting into that time where, you know, tick season, and you want to be very mindful of it. Okay, so Diploda and Chilopoda. Okay, so these are your millipedes and centipedes, which I find very cool. You can find both down here, but both are very long. They're made of many segments. Okay, so the millipedes, they're going to have 2 pair of legs on each segment, all right? Whereas the centipede, they're going to only have 1 pair of leg per body segment. The millipede is nothing to be afraid of. They're going to feed on decaying matter, all right? It's the centipede that you want to watch out for. They're going to have those mandibles, and they are going to bite if threatened, okay? And the bite can be very venomous. Coyote Peterson has been bitten by plenty of centipedes. Why? I don't know. For views, people do things for views. I don't know why. But it can be very venomous, but we're just so big, it's not going to harm us, okay? But say something like in, I don't know about the centipedes of South America. They can get real big there. But down up here, you don't want them to bite you, but at the same time, you should not be afraid that you're going to die or something like that. And if it's okay, can we take a break so I can get some water? My throat is starting to dry up.
Time for part 2. Please take your seats. Okay, our commercial, we're going to start with the commercial. And well, this is Vicki Reed and Monica Shepard, and they will tell you all about their project.
Hi, everyone. I'm Monica Shepard. I'm related to Scott for the last 50-some years. Vicki Reed, my partner, we are members of the class of 2022, which was a hybrid session. We're here to talk today about the Native Plants and Pollinator Garden at the Fred Hute Center. The Fred Hute Center is located in the center of the Ghent Square community. It is in a water ferry terminal that was originally located on the waterfront in Norfolk. It was an active water ferry terminal from 1887 when it was built until 1964 when Norfolk went about its redevelopment. You can see this picture from before 64. This is about the 50s, and that's downtown Norfolk and the center. What we're doing in this project is we're taking a garden that was originally designed as a perennial garden, but fell into major disrepair. This is what it looked like. That's what we are dealing with. And it has a couple of invasive species that we've had to deal with. What we're trying to do is support an ecosystem for native pollinators. Pollinators in this area include birds, bats, bees, and Lepidoptera and moths and skippers. We actually did the research and identified specifically critters that we would like to make sure we are creating a good environment for across their entire life cycle. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Vicki.
Once we determined who we wanted to feed, we did have big research. We set up some teams, and we are currently working on mulling through that research and choosing the plants that we're going to put in, and we are sourcing them to have a big planting this spring, hopefully to invite some students in from one of the local schools to join in the fun with us. As we do this, you guys are graduating at the perfect time. Did you feel lucky? Well, you are, because at the Fred, we've done most of the heavy lifting already. Classes of 22 and 23 have done all of the shovel work. So you guys get to come in and help us do planting, basic maintenance, and then educating the public. Aside from one remaining pile of soil that's left to be sifted, unfortunately. The planning and maintenance is done at the Fred on Tuesdays from 8:30 in the morning until we get hungry or tired usually. There is a lot of foot traffic in our gardens, so we have a chance to actively engage the public, those future green thumbs. Periodically, we will be sponsoring events of a horticultural nature to bring people into the garden. So mark your calendars. We have a spring plant sale, arts and crafts festival on Saturday, May the 4th from 10 to 3. We'll have herbs, annuals, arts and crafts booths. And then this is where you guys come in. We'll have Ask a Master Gardener tables out there where folks can come in, learn about our garden, and you can be there to walk them through the gardens and to, you know, talk about the bugs and birds, butterflies, bees, and things that are in our garden. If you'd like to join us, our information is here. I keep a distribution list, and I'll be happy to add you to that if you want to become part of our team.
Any questions?
Very impressive. Okay, we're going to pick up with the second part of the talk.
So 3 things came up over break, and I will try to remember all of them. So the first concern was the cutting of bamboo was allowing rainwater to get into the hole of the bamboo, and mosquito were laying eggs in there. And how do you control for that? So BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, is very effective at controlling mosquito larvae. And you would have to find a pesticide with Bacillus thuringiensis that is labeled for mosquitoes, mosquito larvae, to be sprayed into there. You can also contact your the city, and I'm a good one. I live in Fort Smith. I'll call the city in a heartbeat to do a mosquito analysis. They'll come out and they'll collect samples of water from particularly, especially like ditches as well. And they'll make a count, mosquito count, to see if it reaches a threshold for spraying. So I'm good for contacting my government about that. Second one, someone came up and said, no one ever mentions just how big ticks can get. And they can get pretty huge once they're fully engorged, full of blood. And you want to be careful about taking them off if they're attached to you. I've seen a lot of people online say, you know, you can burn them off with a lighter, or you just pluck them off. You don't want to do that. You really want to be meticulous and get some tweezers and try to get at that chelicerae, those sawing mouth parts, and grab onto that and gently yank them out. The beauty about Norfolk is that you are close to ODU, and I'm not sure if you're aware that they have a tick lab that will analyze the tick for you to see if it does have a disease. But they could get, you know, you don't want to set the tick on fire or just yank it out, because they essentially just regurgitate all that blood back into you, and you don't know what they have. Yes.
Are these services that you're speaking of, are they mostly free, like test water, mosquito larvae, and take the OU? Are those typically free services to get the benefits?
The government would, at least in Portsmouth, they come out, and you'd have to check to see if Norfolk, but at least in Portsmouth, they come out Monday through Friday, and they'll test. I see them on my Ring camera, and they'll come out and test, and they'll email me back. Yes, I think they've sprayed 3 times or once out of the 3 times that I've called them, and they'll say, yeah, you have a lot of mosquitoes, or not spray, but they cleared the ditch upstream because the ditch goes across multiple houses. I'm doing my work, but the neighbors upstream aren't doing theirs. They'll do that, or they'll say, we don't know what you're talking about, Ms. Callahan. So they've done that to me twice, and I'm sure I'll call them again. I don't know if it's free in Norfolk, but it's free here and in Hampton. And what was your second? I forgot the second part. Free service for ODU. I do not know if the ODU service is free. I could do a quick search if I remember to do that. Okay, so you said the first time is complimentary. They'll try. And I thought they had a lab that you could send off samples to a while ago. Maybe things have changed. And then the third one, what was the third inquiry? I lost it that quickly. Palmetto bugs. I have not heard of them being here. I have never received an inquiry about them, so I know nothing about them other than Palmetto matches up with South Carolina. So I imagine it's a South Carolina bug. Yes, so from what I'm told, yes, they look like roaches. Yeah, I thought maybe it was the water bug that people were talking about, but apparently not. Yeah. Yeah, so. Yeah, I hope they don't make their way up here. But you know, our hardiness zone changed, so I'm a little scared about what could come up here. You know, I'm excited that one day I might be able to put my lemons in my lemon and limes in the ground, but at the same time, what's coming behind it? Is it the palmetto bug? I don't know, but I don't know anything about it in order to provide good feedback on it. Okay, any other questions?
They just asked for a $50.
Okay, so a $50 donation, they'll I appreciate that, to analyze any kind of diseases. Oh, I know what the other question was. Someone was asking about their grandchildren's property up in Northern Virginia and how to control for black-legged tick. Because you know, the kids play outside, it's forested up there, and how do you deal with black-legged tick if they're on the deer? I would recommend, you know, if you have other property or if you're concerned about your relatives, recommend, you know, reaching out to their government, because people at the government level will do studies to see if if there is a problem and if control is warranted. And typically at that scale, and I'm not sure how urbanized that area is, but you would have to go to what the state wildlife resources. It used to be DGIF. I forget what their name is now, but the wildlife resource department, and they build feeders where the deer can go in, and if the feeders have permethrin rollers, when the deer goes through, it'll roll permethrin on their necks to help control for the tick. And in the case of farmers, if it's very rural or if it's a business, they grant variances so that they can take deer out of season, or that they can get more than one deer and by shooting them essentially. So that's not going to happen in a very urban area, but in a more rural area, that's a possibility. But you would need to take that up to the state level in order to get permits for that. Okay, anything else? Yes. Yes, it's going to have that bullseye.
They thought it was arthritis, so it might show in different ways.
Yes, and that's very common occurrence with Lyme disease. It presents itself as something different. So the doctor might take 2, 3, 4, 5 different diagnoses on you, and it may not be the right one. And then all of a sudden, you probably figure out that you have Lyme disease. And that's why it becomes so prevalent, because it presents itself as a different disease and you get misdiagnosed. So, and at the same time, you'd be like, oh, I got, my doctor, I said, I got bitten by a Lone Star tick. They didn't even want to start me on bacterial treatments. They just said if a bullseye shows up, then talk to us, and I'm ready to start antibiotics right now. So, thank goodness it did not happen. Okay. So, isopota. And I just found out that everybody I call it the roly-poly. Yeah. And I saw an argument on Facebook. We just argue about the littlest, tiniest things. Because someone over in England called it wood lice. And of course, the Americans are like, no, it's a roly-poly. So, this is the reason why, understanding the Latin name is the genus and the species, because that carries across the globe. And it'll always be correct, because we're thinking wood lice and we're thinking something that's in someone's hair when you hear lice. And it starts in a Facebook argument. And it's no reason, because everybody has something different for insects, plants, whatever. Even like chips, it's fries are fries to us. It's chips over in England. But I digress. But roly-polies, they're also called sow bugs, pill bugs as well. Depending on who you talk to, wood lice. They're usually from overseas. They're small, oval-shaped, and highly segmented. And they have 7 pair of legs. They're harmless. They're not going to do anything. They're just there to decompose. If anything, they're good for the garden. They're returning nutrients back into your soil. Okay, but they need high humidity for survival. And so when we start warming up here in the summer, they're going to be everywhere. They're kind of just chilling. They're in the soil, nice and warm. And once we start going and the humidity starts being unforgiving, they will make their presence known again. But they can feed on young, tender plants, but they're not on the level of, say, like Japanese beetle. They're not going to take out your prize roses or anything like that. They're just more beneficial than anything. So insect injury. As a master gardener, someone is going to present something to you with very little information. Yeah, see, master gardeners know. And you're going to try to have to figure things out, the right questions, some of the signs and symptoms that you're seeing out there on plant matter, because a lot of these insects, a lot of them are nocturnal. You're not going to see them, like cutworms. I have yet to see a cutworm, but I always see the sign, my corn has been cut, but I never see them. But I know I have cutworms. So with chewing insects, this is going to be very easy to spot. The plant is chewed up, especially by late summer, when the life cycles are starting to head towards the end and everything is blooming, it's up, the leaves are out. The damage is going to be very prevalent during the summer. Okay. Each plant is going to respond differently to that damage, but the chewing insect is going to impair that plant's ability to photosynthesize. So if the plant can't feed itself, it is going to die. It's going to take longer for some things than others. Like if a tree is dying due to it being defoliated, you have a severe infestation, because I'm trying to see some oak trees. Nothing is out yet, but it takes a lot to kill a tree as far as insect damage on the leaves. The hope is that it defoliates, the insect defoliates early enough in the season that the tree can put on a new set of growth later in the season. Because, I could tell people all day, yeah, you can spray tent caterpillars with BT. But if it's 80 feet in the air and now you have to call a certified arborist to climb up there to spray it, and that might cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, a homeowner starts thinking, let's just see what happens. Okay. But if you're just seeing it, I typically don't see issues like that. It might be one tent up there, maybe a couple, but if there are hundreds on there, you would hope, the tree can flush out of that once it's been defoliated and come back. Then you follow up, if you have tree stewards here, the follow up in the spring would be to tell the homeowner, well, if it doesn't leaf out next spring, something has happened. So it's good to keep a good history of your plant. I know it's hard in the grand scheme of the busy lives that we may have, but keeping track of a history of your plant will help in the long term. So from left to right, we have some caterpillars defoliating. They're skeletonizing the leaf there. I believe that's an oak leaf. Am I getting feedback? Sounds like it. Classic Japanese beetle, just causing the stippling effect on the leaf. You have leafcutter bees cutting out little half circles in the leaf at the bottom left there. And they're using that for nesting material. They use that to line their brood cells in the nest. We also have some, I forget which insect this is, but these are on my sweet potatoes. We get some, I want to say flea beetle damage down there on the sweet potato. And then the hornworm, tomato hornworm, forever present in the garden. I try to wait for the parasitic wasp to come, but I don't have that kind of time because something that big, it's a very large caterpillar. And if you ever have the chance to see the adult moth, which is very beautiful, I recommend it. But don't let its baby hang out in your vegetable garden because it will tear it up overnight. So, but it is very cool at the same time if you ever get parasitic wasp to infect it, lay eggs, it'll lay its eggs on top of the caterpillar. And it's very cool. Those babies will come out and eat the caterpillar. So, cool things about insects. Piercing sucking insects, they feed by piercing on the plant tissue and they suck the sap out from the plant's cells. So they'll either suck out the xylem and phloem, sugars and waters, or they'll burst the organelles in the plant cells and suck up those juices. And if you're familiar, with organelles in plants, sounds like organs. That's, because those are the organs of the plant. And it cannot function without those organelles. So they need them. So only those internal liquids are ingested by the plant. You do have some insects that will bore and they'll just eat the cambium layer of the plant and be on their way. But as far as piercing, sucking insects, the injury is small. It's very difficult to see. It's really not until it's in mass where homeowners, and myself included, start noticing the damage. This azalea was sent to me by a homeowner, like, Gaylynn, what's going on? And I automatically knew it's some kind of mite. I don't know if it's red mites or if it's two-spotted spider mites. Really difficult to see under with the naked eye. And while, yes, I saw a mite, I just wasn't sure which mite it was. So I sent the samples off to the lab for ID, and it came back with two-spotted spider mite. But what you'll see is spotted discoloration in the leaves. It's called stippling. When you get that, as far as mite damage, Do I have an example? I don't. I'll save one for the next class. Sorry, y'all. But if y'all are here, and then if I'm invited back, I'll have a sample for you. You'll also get discoloration on the stems, the fruit. You'll also get curling and puckering of leaves, which is also difficult because your initial thought may be your plant's dehydrated, give it some water. If it's not reacting to that, then there's another issue. Is it an insect? Is the insect present? Or is it a disease? Something going on with the roots? It's, again, being a master gardener, extension agent is fun because there's all kind of challenges that are just thrown out at you. You'll get deformed fruit and seed. You get a witch's broom in growth. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with fire blight. It's a huge issue why, it's very difficult to grow fruit trees, peaches and apples around here because you could get bacterial infection of fire blight. And if you see that crookneck in a plant, as far as a fruit tree, you got fire blight. Very hard to get rid of, and you usually have to get rid of the fruit tree itself because there's no coming back from it. You also get wilting and dying of the entire plant as well. Yes.
So when you say fruit trees, do they also affect like citrus fruits?
I'm not 100% sure on that. I would imagine so, but don't quote me on that. But it's not as prevalent as apples and peaches around here. So the far left picture, that's two-spotted spider mite. I also have to take out a plant because I have two-spotted spider mite and it just got away from me and the plant's dead. The top right, I automatically know someone has an issue with aphids. Someone brings a plant with black markings to me. I know that's sooty mold, okay? And what happens is that the aphid excretes honeydew from its abdomen. And when it dries up, it dries into a black form. Also, telltale sign is outside of our office building, it without fail, and I've told office management that they've had crepe myrtle bark scale. Aphids and scale do this with the honeydew. I see a long trail of ants going up because I park on the far end and I can see the ant trail all the way to the crepe myrtles. And they're just little workers. It's amazing how in line they can be. But I look up and yes, the tree is all black as far as the leaves, and the leaf can no longer photosynthesize. The trees are still alive. The crepe myrtle bark scale is not as prevalent, so they must be doing something. I don't know what they're doing, but it's not as prevalent. But I always see the ant trail. I do see some crepe myrtle bark scale. And then at the bottom, those are stink bugs. And what they do is that they pierce, and they'll keep piercing, sucking out juices, and then you get these markings on your fruit in your vegetable garden or farm, whatever it is. And from a marketing standpoint, that fruit is no longer sellable. You can still eat it, but it's not going to have that developed taste that the fruit should have because it's just not given a chance to develop. Those juices, in the case of tomatoes here, just didn't get a chance to flow. So it's not going to taste like a ripened tomato in this case. I also have an example of wasp galls on an oak tree. And you can see the little holes in here. That's where the little galls have come out. So they're little wasps. They'll come in, they'll lay eggs in there. The plant doesn't know what's happening. So what it does, it forms this cancerous kind of tumor to try to help itself. It's just growing out of control. And the wasp is just the babies are just kind of sitting in there and resting and waiting to come out. And those little holes are where each of the wasps have come out. In heavy infestation yes, but typically I only see maybe a couple of, these kind of galls on a tree. You might see them on the leaf of a wasp gall as well. And essentially, you just hope the plant drops its leaves and put on a new flush of leaves. So then you have internal feeders. They will feed on the plant tissues for all or part of their development. They gain entrance to the plant when the female inserts eggs into part of the plant, or by eating their way into the plant after hatching. So being from Detroit, this was I didn't know, I was a teenager, but I didn't know what was going on. So the emerald ash borer had entered the country through a port in Michigan and really did not start seeing the effects. It started in Metro Detroit, where if you pull up the origins, there is a classic picture where there's a tree-lined street of ashes, beautiful, leafed out, and maybe like the photo 10 years later, they're all dead. Okay, so the emerald ash borer can be very devastating. So it's prevalent more north of here. We suspect that it's here in Hampton Roads already. And at last check, VDOF, Department of Forestry, had grants where people could, on large properties, could drench with pesticides their trees in order to protect them. So a drench would mean that you drench the soil drench with pesticide. The tree will take up the pesticide in its xylem. And as the borer is eating the xylem, it will get that pesticide in it and die. I don't know about the grant right now, but we did try to protect some trees at Bluebird Gap Farm. They're still there, so that doesn't mean we don't know if the emerald ash borer is here, or if they were there, if they're dead. Need to follow up with VDOF to see if they had any kind of research on that. But that's what emerald ash borer does. The bark will loosen off of the tree, and all of a sudden you'll see this tunneling. And it's not just emerald ash borer. There are all kind of borers out there that do this, which is why, like, if you're ever at the airport or, cruise, and you see the agricultural specialists from the CBP, Border Patrol, this is why they're there, to prevent these kind of things, because it's absolutely devastating. You have leaf miners. They really don't, I really haven't heard of them causing so much damage that you need to take preventative measures against them. You also have termites. Definitely you want to take preventative measures because they can take your whole house with them. And then you have corn earworm in the bottom right. They're always fun to deal with when you open them up. But the control measures, they're most effective when you get the emerging adults or the immature states before they enter, because, once you go into the bark of a tree, it's really hard to get into there, or into a leaf. It's hard, especially with a contact spray. There's nothing to contact because they're inside the internal portion of that plant. So it's very hard. Subterranean insects, they're good ones because we don't normally look at the subsurface when we start seeing damage on plants. We're always looking at the surface and trying to figure out what's going on there. And it's usually the roots are like the last thing in the back of our heads. So I remember Billy Woods, who's the owner of Woods Orchard, and the extension agent at the time, Jim Williams. I communicate with Jim. Oh, y'all that close to the airport? That's cool. Sorry. He was telling me that, they were trying to figure out what was going on with his peach trees. Ultimately, Mr. Woods lost his peach trees to fire blight. He took all of them out because of that. But at the time, they were trying to figure out what was going on with the peach trees and why they were just wilted and whatnot. And they tried all kind of different things. And then Jim told him, well, let's take a look at the roots and let's send in a sample. And meanwhile, Jim thinks he's just going to give him like a little piece of root. No, Mr. Woods got his tractor, yanked out a peach tree, cut off the whole root system, and they mailed that bad boy in. Okay. I can't imagine the shipping cost on that. It would be expensive. But they found out they had nematodes, not an insect, but you know, you can put a lot of time in trying to figure out what's going on the surface, and it's really happening at the bottom, at the root level. So these subterranean insects, they will attack below the surface. They're hidden from sight, and they either spend their entire life cycle below ground or half as larvae and then come up as adults. So root maggot on the far upper left, you know, is a good one. You know, I have a ton of garlic and onion in my garden beds right now, so I'm always on the watch for root maggots. Wireworm digging in sweet potatoes. You have grubs. They're just everywhere. Beetles, you're not going to escape them. You're going to have grubs. And then corn rootworm as well. So they're just sucking the life out of the roots. Instead of the xylem and phloem that's in the shoots, they're sucking it out of the roots. So the roots don't even have a chance. So injury by egg laying, you will see a lot of this from the cicadas. Okay. So what the cicada does, the female will make these little cuts into small twigs of the tree. You're gonna start seeing the tips later this summer start browning, and they're going to fall off. And a cool fact, that's how the eggs get back into, or the larvae get back into the soil to start the life cycle over again. So you might get a lot of calls about the brown, oh my God, my tree is dying. But if you're seeing the tips of the tree fall off, it's just a cicada completing its life cycle. It's not going to kill a huge tree, you know, an 80-foot oak. It might kill off like a newly planted tree because it cannot take that kind of damage. But there's no cause for concern. But at the same time, I've never seen 3 generations come up at the same time, but I'm not worried about big old oak or sweet gum not being able to withstand this. Okay. We have some more wasp galls in the bottom left. So you have the, they present in different forms. So this is a wasp gall, this is a different wasp gall. And then you have another wasp gall affecting a plant right there. Okay, with the fuzzy brown egg sacs. And then you have another wasp gall that's affecting the leaves, creating injury to the leaves and settling in there. So it presents in different ways. So plant disease vectors. So be mindful that insects not only carry diseases, you know, in the case of mosquitoes for humans, but they also carry diseases for plants. So they'll create wounds. They'll feed, they'll lay eggs, they're bored, and they can give the pathogen either directly, or sometimes creating that wound causes a secondary infection. So the plant gets impacted by the insect, and then because that wound is nice, it's moist, an infection is going to occur from elsewhere. Okay, so that could be an issue. It can also be carried on their bodies as well. As far as the pest is concerned. But the vector, it could be at any stage of its life cycle as far as the insect. It can be on there. The pathogen could not survive without that insect host. So I'm not sure if y'all had disease class, but if the disease is present, you have to have the right conditions and you have to have the host. Or the animal or plant that's going to get infected. Okay, or yeah, it's a host. Okay, so all of those have to be present in order for that to happen. All right. We're almost there, y'all. So in the top left, we have Dutch elm disease. All right, and that's the elm bark beetle. I get a lot of notifications about this, but we really don't see it around here. But it's one of those first insects why they say don't move wood. Okay, so I like to go camping and I try to be cognizant because, yeah, I can get wood anywhere from around here, but you should buy the wood that's local to the environment where you're going and leave it there. It's very common that other campers, they will leave the wood there because if you transport it back, you don't know what you're transporting back to your local ecosystem. Fire blight, innocently enough, the honeybee causes the bacteria to infect the fruit tree. So the fire blight bacteria, the honeybee will land on a plant that's infected, get it on its legs, its body, it'll fly off. And as it's pollinating the flower, it'll leave the bacteria there. And that bacteria will go through the flower and into the plant and infect it. And then you'll start seeing that crook neck in the plant. And you know you have fire blight. Tomato spotted wilt and thrips. Okay, again, piercing, sucking, causing discoloration. And one that's very prevalent around here is rose rosette disease, and that's transmitted by mites. All right, and there's nothing you can do to get rid of rose rosette disease. You want to pull out the plant. You can try to solarize the soil, but it's recommended to put anything in there that is not related to roses. And that's a lot of plants out there. A lot of plants out there are related to roses. And again, you don't even see the mite. That's an electron microscope that's under in order to get that visual. So, but it's not all doom and gloom. I don't want to have you leave out here thinking that insects are just, you know, you just like honeybees and that's it. Okay. There are a lot of benefits to insects. And even someone came up here and said, I just love insects. I don't want to touch them, but I love them. And I understand the sentiment, but pollination, it's not just honeybees out there doing pollination. Bumblebees are out there doing pollination. I have seen blueberry, my pollinators, I think they're called blueberry bee or a squash bee, come to my blueberries. They're all kind. We would not have the variety of foods that we have out here without our pollinators. Honeybee, there are naturalized European honeybee or natives or otherwise. You also have predators and parasitoids, and I'm constantly learning to be in harmony with my gardens and try to work with the natural ecosystem and let it work, putting in more pollinator plants to encourage more beneficial, not just the pollinators, but the predators come as well. So you have ladybugs. I have a lot of ladybugs. They'll start showing up here soon. Lacewings, assassin bugs, but be careful because they will stick you and it does hurt. Dragonflies, just because of the ditch area that I do have some dragonflies. And I just don't want to go spraying wildly in the air and killing off everything. I want everything to work. And also buying pesticides is an expense that I don't want to incur. Because last thing I want to do is grow a $50 tomato, but I'm well on my way. They also promote soil fertility, either by burrowing or they defecate, that's good manure, grass, or decomposing upon their death. Or they can be decomposers themselves. They're doing some good work. They're also food for many other animals, including us as humans. It's not a part of our diet, but somewhere around the globe, it's a part of someone's diet, insects. And as a matter of fact, if you are interested, there's a candy shop in Virginia Beach on the ocean front that offers candied insects. If you're venturous, I'm not that venturous. There's medical purposes behind it. If you've ever seen maggot therapy, no, yeah. So if there's like, if you have dead tissue, maggots feed on dead tissue. And if your burns are so severe, doctors will throw some maggots on there and they'll eat the dead tissue and they'll leave the living tissue alone, just to try to clean it up. I watch all kind of things on YouTube. The medical stuff is just amazing. But I watch all kind of things. But you also have the honey and silk behind it. So we get food products from it as well. Okay. Now for you as master gardeners, there are 2 routes for as far as sending off samples to Virginia Tech. If you can't get it, if your extension agent can't get the identification, this is what we do. I normally send things off to Blacksburg in the form of a picture. So Eric Day is in charge of the lab up there. And it's just insect ID lab at vt.edu if I need to send a picture up to him. Sometimes he requests the sample. And the sample, you have to send to UPS ground because the UPS is not like sending alcohol via air. But there are these little tubes. There should be some in the office. And he sends it back to you if you send it off. And you put the little insect sample in there, put it in some alcohol, and you just ship it off like this. Okay? It's very cheap. And you should always ask people who are bringing in samples into your office to make sure they have a dead bug, because the last thing you want is a live bed bug or cockroach coming into the office. So if you're at the help desk, just tell folks to put things in a container and in alcohol, which is why I have various jars up here. These are homeowners bringing things to me. Okay, you're more than welcome to look at that. This one was mine personally, my little KFC jar, with a, what is that? That's an eastern cicada killer, if you come up there. And these are eastern cicada killers as well, I believe. Okay, so make sure things are dead. Also, the Hampton Roads AREC. Have y'all been down there off Diamond Springs Road? So if you go in the back area, they have a little area for people to drop off plant samples, insect samples, and you just fill out the form. And I regularly go, I'm down there maybe like once a week, or not once a week, once a month with some sort of sample to drop off. And Dr. Alejandro Del Pazo, he's the entomologist in Hampton Roads. He's stationed down there. But I also take other plant samples down there as well if I can't figure out what's going on. Okay, or if I need a weed ID or something, they can do that down there. And I started doing that because Virginia Tech started charging plant pathology. They started charging to process samples. They still do it for free down there. So just to get around, a little workaround. But yeah, that's all I have. I finished up early, which is, I'm fine with that because I'm just about to die. But if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Yes.
So this really huge tree that leaves are gorgeous. Came down on my daughter's floor and demolished it.
Oh,
They have no roots.
yeah.
How is that possible? What should they do? I mean, it's an insect, they just eat the roots, but the tree looks good as a huge, very old tree.
Well, I'm not sure did they get it analyzed? Did they get the roots there? Or there were no roots left? Huh. That's a tough one. I would check the soil, have a soil analysis to see if there are still, insects there, maybe nematodes as well. If you're saying it's a very old tree, Like how old? Yeah. Yeah, if it's very old, it had to establish at some point because sometimes at planting is where everything goes wrong. But yeah, I would definitely see if you can get the soil analyzed for nematodes. I believe we have a nematodologist at Tech. I forget his name. I just remember he signs off with worm regards. But there is a nematodologist, and if you follow up with me, I think my contact information is in that first slide. Possibly if the insect or a nematode, is still there and it's just eating up the roots. So any more questions? Yes. I don't know, but I could get back to you. It sounds like it's a different species, but I have never heard of blue roly-polies, to be honest. I mean, the blue roly-polies. That's pretty cool. I want to look at it now. But any other questions? Blue roly-poly. Oh my God, the first thing that came up, the horrible reason roly-polies are sometimes blue. I'm gonna have to look into that to see what that's about. I've never heard of that before. It's always a new day in extension. You just keep learning. Keep learning.
All right, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.